Hi, my name is Riley Holloman, and I will be sharing my cultural counseling presentation with you today. So we're going to go ahead and start off with verbal communication of my culture. So I have basically three different cultures in a way. I'm Asian, I'm adopted. So my dad is white, or I guess Caucasian, and then my mom is Mexican. So I'm kind of a blend of all three. So that is kind of what's going to be throughout this whole presentation. So for the main part, my culture really focuses on being direct, words of affirmation, respect, and manners for authority and free speech. So what this looks like using your words by saying what you want, why you want it, basically when you want it, but not but in a of course in a respectful way. Otherwise, we're not really like a hint kind of culture. It's very much express how you feel and you're heard as long as it's respectful. Words of affirmation, we really value whenever someone notices what we do, or if there needs to be some kind of like reassurance within the group. And then respect and manners for authority. This is more so for my family. They had raised me to say like, please and thank you, pardon me. That was more so for higher, like for the elderly. Also for just anyone involved as well. It's less with friends, more so with people of authority. And free speech, this is something that my dad had definitely implemented within my childhood. He said that I could say anything as long as it's respectful. I could ask for anything as long as it was respectful. I wouldn't always get it, of course, but yeah, so he definitely implemented that within my childhood, and I've taken it with me throughout. Nonverbal communication styles of my culture. So again, Asian, Caucasian, and Mexican. So we are heavily focused on gestures. Obviously, this looks like hands, and that usually happens whenever we are talking most of the time, or in arguments. Maybe it's to show that we're pleased. And then for there's eye contact as well. That is heavily focused since it shows a sign of respect. It shows that we're listening. This goes hand in hand with smiling. So I guess like facial features, that's super important. You can tell a lot from a person and the conversation based on these facial features, as well as body language. If someone's interested, they are more like facing frontwards and they have their feet pointed at you and maybe they're leaning in. Whereas if someone is not interested, they would be like this basically, or they would just I guess be away from you and just not very interested in whatsoever in what you're saying. So each of these play a huge part in conversation in a nonverbal way. And then proud aspects within my culture. I am very proud that my culture is very individualistic. We tend to focus more so on ourselves and what can benefit us. We think that it's going to help more so for the group if we can take care of our own well-being so that way we can properly care for others. And this looks like encouragement towards relationship with God, and also being expressive through food, art, and music. That's huge within my culture, as especially with the Mexican culture. And then striving towards our dreams and being open to other cultures. I know that not all cultures are necessarily open to striving towards your dreams, especially like maybe with like what's it called? With collectivistic cultures, they're more like for the group. My culture, we really strive on like if you want it, work for it. It doesn't obviously get handed to you, but you just have to be willing to put in the work for it. And a lot of times that is built up from passion. And like I said, that can be shown through food, art, and music. And because there is that passion there for our own culture, we also have the respect for other cultures and just to learn more, which I absolutely love about my culture. These GCU just GCU dispositions are what kind of fall under this category. So it will be psychological fitness, where I feel like my culture and I are pretty aware of what is going on, and constantly wanting to learn more about other cultures, and doing a lot of self-reflection, and just taking time to really think if that is something that we truly desire, or maybe it's like, oh, that's a different perspective, and we'll actually take time to think about that, which I think is super important. Um, and then the second thing would be cultural diversity. This is very important as well, since we, especially in counseling, when we are dealing with clients who are different cultures than us, we want to make sure to be open to that, to be accepting, uh, to be able to question them as well, in a respectful way, and why they believe in what they believe. This also goes hand in hand with acceptance, just being able to accept the person as they are, blank slate. Each client is technically like a blank slate to me, coming in new. You don't want to judge them or assume that they're coming in with any traumas that are connected to a certain culture, because you really never know. And then cultural aspects to improve. I had chosen societal norms of young adults, community and gathering within family, lack of traditions, and open communication. So for societal norms of young adults, it is very highly pressured that we are supposed to marry young, graduate early, have all the money, travel, make time to travel, work full time. It's absolutely crazy. And although I respect the grind for it, I think that we should rest to work rather than work to rest. That is something that can be improved for sure, over time, and I would love to be a part of that. I also put community and gathering within family. I've noticed that a lot of my culture and a lot of my friends and other family, we don't really share that community as much anymore. If it is, it kind of feels forced in a way. It's not really as like tradition. So on to my next point, there seems to be a lot of lack of traditions. I know that whenever I was younger, we had gathered a bit more, maybe done like things around the holidays, but I think that lack of tradition really plays a role in this as well. And then open communication is something that we can also improve on. I think that for the most part, my culture does an okay job at it, but it's definitely something that we have to be constantly putting effort towards. It's not something that's like by nature, if that makes sense. Stereotypes toward my culture. Again, so this is going to be for Asian, American, and Mexican culture. For Asian, I was always told like, oh, you're going to be pretty shy. You're supposed to be smaller weight. You're supposed to be tinier. You're supposed to be good at math. And then for the white or like the Caucasian culture, I was told that I was closed-minded, or I even looked stuck up, I guess, in a way. And they said that they didn't really understand that I wasn't until they met me. But again, I think it's just because of my culture. And then for the Mexican culture, we tend to be very loud, which I relate to. But that is a stereotype that was put towards me more so throughout elementary and middle school, a little bit of high school, but less during that time. Stereotypes that are actually held within my culture are that we're all Republicans. A lot of us think that the youth are uneducated, and then that we're closed-minded about gender beliefs, and that we're overworkers. So this may be true to an extent, but it depends from person to person, from family to family, culture to culture, right? So for us being the same, what's it called? Political party, that's definitely not true. Most of us, I guess, are Republicans. But if someone is a Democrat, it's definitely like stood out within the family. Um, and I can totally see how someone may feel left out from that. And I would never want that. It's the same thing for the uneducated youth. A lot of my family think that the younger kids are not as educated and don't know as much. I think this is probably due to like again, with politics and schooling and everything, just how we were raised so different from our parents. And being closed-minded about gender beliefs. This is more because we were raised on like Christian values, and these Christian values don't necessarily align with our gender beliefs. Now, I am a little bit different in this area where I choose to be a little bit more accepting and understanding of it, showing them love, being less forceful about it. But it can be a very forceful thing within my culture. And the last thing would be over workers. We, like I said in the previous slide, that we tend to work to rest instead of rest to work. And so we often feel burnt out most of the time, and that we're just living instead of thriving life. So I would say those are the stereotypes held within my culture. And then cultural perceptions about substance use. So I feel like my culture is very sensitive about this. It is suggested that we use this in moderation. Like in the Bible, this goes back to the Bible because a lot of my culture is biblical and like faith-based. So it's okay to drink every now and then, but it's just to be mindful of not getting drunk, because that can prevent us from being sober-minded and cause us to sin and make mistakes maybe that we don't necessarily want to make. And so it's more of a faith-based, and that's why we do it in moderation. And a lot of the times in my family, there's consideration of recovering alcoholics. So for those who are recovering alcoholics, we tend to not carry as much alcohol or little to no alcohol if we have like family parties, just to be considerate of their past and what they're going through, and just to encourage them and support them on the journey that they're in. Again, this is faith-based belief. I understand that not every culture is like this, but this is just how my family is. How my culture perceives counseling. So my friends, family, peers, my work peers, we see it as acceptable, encouraged, and questionable. So it's pretty acceptable and encouraged whenever someone does want to seek counseling. This is because they want to we strive to be the best that we can be, and the people around me want the same thing for everyone. So I think it's because we all have that same belief. It's like you got to do what you need to do in order to be your best self. And if you need to seek counseling, there's no judgment for that. If you need to like seek therapy, or if you need to go to like a smaller group leader or any type of mentor, that's definitely encouraged as well. And it's not seen as weakness, rather it's seen as a sign of strength, because we're open enough to seek out help and to see what other people have to say, and take their advice. I would say that it would be questionable to the point where, how do I put it? It will be questionable to the point where it may become like suicidal, or if you're pretty dark. I know that from my mom. She had questioned this quite a bit because she grew up in a little bit of a harder time. And the counseling was just not an option during that time. It was just, you gotta roll with the punches and you have to keep going with it. You don't need help. If you do, then you're kind of seen as an outcast. So that took my mom a bit to understand whenever I had joined counseling, whenever I had gotten counseling. I mean, she was able to fully accept that, but it just took a little bit. Yeah. And then influence of cultural background when counseling within my culture. So I feel like the benefits of this would be empathy, understanding, and being relatable. I understand that if I were to counsel people who were American, Asian, or Mexican, I feel like I would have a good basic understanding of each culture, enough to understand where they're coming from and why they feel the way they feel, especially with their values, traditions, and morals. I know each one of those can be different for those cultures. And I feel like I can definitely use that to my advantage, especially with the psychological fitness, self-awareness, cultural diversity, empathy, and amiability, being the GCU dispositional values. I think that I would be able to connect on a deeper level with my clients and to really take myself out of my own shoes and to understand what they're going through. I think that doing this would be able to build rapport and have a good therapeutic relationship. Even when assessing treatments, I think that this would be super beneficial as well. So, influence of cultural background when counseling to another culture. Now, for me, I feel like this is where I can definitely have some limits. Well, first off, we'll go ahead and start off with increased effort of understanding. I think because if I were to counsel someone else of another culture, I would put more effort into trying to understand where they're coming from because I don't know it. So this would look like going to certain workshops, maybe events of their culture, maybe doing some more research of their culture, um, and their beliefs, traditions, and values. I think that that would be super beneficial to my professional identity and just overall well-being and cultural competency. I think that's very important. And then I think also that my influence of my cultural background can make me very biased. And that can be very dangerous when trying to counsel a client because you don't want to cause them any harm whatsoever. But I know that this can be very it can happen subconsciously, and it's good to be mindful of it and to put in practices to avoid that. And then challenges of cultural competency. This is kind of overall what I had spoken about that these cultural competencies can be challenged through me being biased or not knowing enough information. I would rather look at it half full, a cup half full, in a way that I can grow a lot more and learn a lot more, instead of just being limited to it. I think that this can definitely grow me and challenge me in a new area. And then that is it. So thank you so much for listening and watching my presentation.